Hello, everybody. My name is Jelani, and welcome to the 51st episode of the DeSci Rising series put on by DeSci World, where our goal here is always to provide an opportunity for many of the wonderful projects on our growing DeSci World dashboard to just kind of formally introduce themselves, update their progress, highlight their achievements, and just generally engage with both the DeSci world, but also the wider DeSci community. Now, the idea behind all of this is that at DeSci World, we very much believe that more than the tech, more than the funding, it is the community leveraging these tools that are really going to usher in a lot of the changes that we're all looking for DeSci to bring to the various legacy STEM industries that we're a part of. Now, in today's episode, we have a great guest. I have the pleasure of speaking with Delroy Fraser, who is the founder of Nobleblocks, which is essentially a community-led or platform that incentivizes open publishing, reviewing, and criticizing collaboration in science. Now, one little interesting thing here is that they're actually built on the ICP blockchain, which is something that we don't often see in DeSci. I think there's one other DeSci project, Signet, that is doing that. Now, I'd love to get into like the intricacies of why you chose ICP, but we'll get into that as we move forward with the conversation. So, without further ado, welcome, Delroy, and thank you for taking the time today to help us learn about yourself as much as learning about what you're building at Nobleblocks.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, so as you were saying, we're building this a decentralized platform for scientists. Well, I guess academic publishing, because it's going to be multidisciplinary, not just for scientists per se. And it's kind of a social networking as well, because scientists want to also distribute their content to the wider audience in a way that they can understand it, and so on. So for that, we also integrate a social networking aspect to the platform. That side is pretty much live, but the peer review side, it's also live, but it's not open to the general public right now. And if you go to our website, you'll see we have something there, but we are going to update the UI to make it much more appealing and easier to use. So, so that's what we're currently working on.
So that's a great overview of the platform itself. Usually what I like to do with this is allow people to get to know you, kind of how you got into this space, but also what are some of the problems? Because in our space, you have a variety of people who are both scientific, like formally trained scientists, like myself, and I think you may be as well, and those who are not and don't understand what are some of the problems that I hear. Before we get to that, though, we have that investor who is up to speak as well. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself. I'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for hosting this. Thanks for having me up here. So I am that investor on every platform except for this platform, actually, where my handle is this investor because they suspended my old account. Don't know why, but that's not what we're here to talk about. I've been helping out Nobleblocks as best I can, try and help everyone understand what is actually being built here and what the problems are that they are solving. So I think I could actually speak on some of the problems in the current industry. And I think the best way that I can present this in a way that everyone can understand is by giving a real world example to where things have kind of gone wrong in our current system for publishing academic research. And that is that back many decades ago, maybe not many decades ago, but back in, I think it was the 70s, Coca-Cola actually lobbied Harvard scientists to publish misleading and false information, false research about the effects of sugar on the body. They said fat was bad, sugar was good, drink Coca-Cola if you want to live a long, healthy life. And they actually paid Harvard scientists like full year salaries just to be on a board to peer review each other's research and just push this false narrative so that Coca-Cola would get in everything. And in our current system, because there's only 5 publishing sites where you can go to post your peer-reviewed research, they got away with it because nobody could see what was happening behind the scenes. And something like Nobleblocks can change that, is changing that. They're allowing for an open source, an open distribution system of peer-reviewed data and research. So I'm very excited to see what they're building here. And I think another thing that sets it out, you even mentioned this DeSci world, is that it's being built out on top of the internet computer. So the front end hosting website is being built out on top of a decentralized network. So it's not like some other platforms out there that if Amazon decides to shut down their servers for anything crypto related, everything gets lost. This is being built out in a way that it cannot just be shut down like that. So very excited. Again, thank you for hosting this. I appreciate you having me up here.
I mean, it's fantastic points. And as a scientist who has gone through the rigmarole of publishing papers, and I'm going to be publishing a paper soon in and of itself, yeah, there's a lot of things that can be greatly improved in the scientific publishing or just the information dissemination space of science. Some of it are archaic infrastructural issues, so bureaucracy and just too much red tape that slow down the process. Others are, to your particular point, malicious acts that are being lobbied for profit reasons, but really obscure and deviate from the essence of truth that should exist in the scientific realm and in the scientific record. And I think we've come to a head over the last 5 years or so with enough of that proof making its way into the general collective knowledge that I think there is a concerted push towards, you know, having a better system or removing some of these pain points that exist there. Delaware, I'd love to hear how you, as the founder and as the ideator, how did you make your way into this, the development of this platform?
So I met someone who is a scientist from the Caribbean, and they were supposed to hang out, and they're saying that they have papers to review. And I was saying they'd probably be paying you a lot of money to do this because you're on holiday. And they said no, they're not getting paid. I'm saying, wow, that's interesting. And then they're saying that yeah, that's what scientists do. They do it for the community, but they take their time to do it because they're not being rewarded. So I'm like, okay, so they're not being paid. And she was saying that this is a you don't say pay because that's kind of not a good thing to say in the scientific world. You're paying them to do the review. So I was saying blockchain could fix this because you could reward people through tokens. So they're not really necessarily saying you're paying them, but they're being rewarded. And then if they're being rewarded justly, they will spend more time and review the papers quicker. So if there is some kind of finding, it will get to the rest of the world quickly, and then it will serve whatever purpose it is. Just like COVID the other day, everybody came out and everybody was trying to figure out what this thing was. And within a year, they start developing all kind of a vaccine. So yeah, that's how I started.
I mean, that's a fantastic point. So for those of you who are unaware, in the scientific realm, when you publish, your paper goes to review as it should, right? But on the other hand of that, oftentimes as an expert or as somebody working in a particular field, you'll receive emails from editors from journals who request you to review and peer review a particular article, but that is for free. And so, as a scientist, we're already strapped trying to find funding for our own internal projects. In addition to taking on the reviewing of someone else's project, that's a lot of burden that exists on a scientist's shoulders where there is no remuneration. So, there's no way to actually capitalize off of that. It's really for the cause. And a lot of scientists do it because this is a public commons mindset in the academic scientific field. But there definitely is a need to remediate on some of the ways that this can be done better. How can we help provide scientists with more cushioning so that they can take the time to do the science that they want to do and also contribute to growing the community in and of itself? And so Nobleblocks, among many other projects, are also tackling that, and that's fantastic. Why did you choose ICP?
Well, so ICP was before when I just thought of this idea a couple of years ago, we were thinking about EOS because that was the blockchain we thought we could build in, but then ICP came about, and ICP is just like running on the cloud. I mean, it's not as easy to build on there because we're building using Rust and TypeScript. It's not a language many programmers know and are capable of, so maybe you can build with other languages, but ICP was the only one. Internet Computer was the only one that has everything we need to make our vision come to light. You know, it was the it has everything we need. The tokenomics, the 100% on-chain, fast, secure. It has everything. It's not like somebody building on Amazon and then they connect Ethereum wallet or Solana wallet and then they say, yeah, they're decentralized. They're really not decentralized. Their token, the tokenomics, the token for those platforms, that side is decentralized. But in terms of the entire platform, it's not. So yeah, that's one of the main reasons we join on an Internet Computer.
If I could add something about the Internet Computer as well, because I don't know that many people realize this, but they actually have something known as a reverse gas model. So on Ethereum, where a lot of the decentralized science projects are being built out on, and truthfully, most cryptocurrency projects are being built out on Ethereum right now, you might have to pay upwards of like $50 for gas in order to make transactions. And most of the time, it's not going to be that high, but occasionally you will get caught in just a high frequency area. Internet Computer has reverse gas, so if you're needing to make any transactions or interact with any of these dApps built out on it, you pay pennies. So it's good for user adoption where these people won't have to be paying really to use the applications.
So that's actually those are two very salient points, and they're non-trivial, right? So if we think about it, on one hand, to Delroy's point, a lot of projects that exist in the DeSci space are not inherently natively on-chain, right? They have hooks or certain aspects of themselves that exist on-chain, but most of them are not in natively on it. It sounds like Nobleblocks, by virtue of building on ICP, provides that native aspect, which is inherent to itself. So that's really interesting. And the second thing is, to your point about the gas, it's going to be hard to convince or to drive adoption from the scientific realm where it is very expensive to publish in science for sure. A couple of $1,000, more than a couple of $1,000. But even still, if I have to pay up 500 to $50 to $500 in gas depending on the time, that's just something that's going to stymie adoption. And so if we can bring that barrier down even further, like leveraging L2s and or ICP and other more high performance blockchains, then that is definitely a plus in bringing scientists and science creators or publishers into a project.
Exactly, exactly. And whatever we can do to reduce the barrier of entry for people, because every single company, every single crypto project needs to onboard people. I know you need a solid foundation, like you need solid tech and to fulfill a purpose in the market. But once you've established that, which people are pretty good at doing, you need to figure out a way to reduce that friction, that UI, the user experience even. So I think it's a good mixture. It's a really good mixture where Nobleblocks is solving a problem in the industry and doing it in a way that I think will be able to onboard a ton of users.
Absolutely. And if we think about it, the publishing market is about $19 billion, or the publishing entire industry generates about $19 billion a year. That's a huge, huge market, right? Well, relatively huge market. If an on-chain native protocol like like Nobleblocks can attract even just a small percentage of that, that's fantastic. That's super sustainability for something that we haven't seen at this realm before. So kudos to that. I think that's going to be a great opportunity. Dora, I'd love to kind of for you to walk us through the platform in and of itself. So you talked about social features, you talked about the peer reviewing features. What does that actually look like for a user who wants to leverage Nobleblocks from both ends?
Okay, so basically, if you're an author, you would submit your paper to have it peer reviewed. Then we have editors who will be selected, and then they will accept or deny the work of the author. And then if it's accepted, then they'll pass it on to the reviewer. It's basically like a traditional process where it will go through similar rigor. And then once all of that has been completed, then it will be published. And after it's been published, you will have also people who might be able to break it down into maybe scientific communicators who can break this down into language the general public can understand. And this will be posted on the social platform front end where the general public who might be interested could see this and it serves some kind of purpose to them. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Yeah, that's basically, and actually, not everything that has not been peer reviewed will be discarded. We'll still publish those, but they won't be, of course, peer reviewed. But other people can go on there and they can set up a bounty and have other people comment on it or review them. But so yeah, it's not gonna be so. Right now, how they have the system set up, it's very not everything they're publishing, but we will publish everything, but not everything will go through the rigor of being peer reviewed. I
Yeah.
don't know
So
if that's
I get
correct.
what you're saying. Yeah, I get what you're saying. So you'll have so you basically are both a pre peer reviewed platform as well as those who do peer review. And I think that's important because to your point in the scientific realm, how it happens now is if you don't get peer reviewed, you don't get published, right? With the exclusion of certain types of journals like bioarchive and all those kind of things, those preprint journals, which allow you to look at non-peer reviewed papers, there's not many of those out there. So that's fantastic. In terms of the peer reviewing process, can anybody peer review? Or is there a whitelisting or a filtering or a credential requirement for somebody to come in and tackle a particular paper?
So we haven't gone through fully how the system, that side of it will work in terms of, but because we have some scientists who are helping us to set that up, but it will be people who are coming in, they will be expert within their field. And then it's similar to how the system is working now in terms of review, but we will be more transparent and we'll accept more opinions. So yeah, it's we'll have a committee who select people who can review and
Okay.
edit.
Okay. I see Nerd Nugget has requested to come up and speak. You want to unmute yourself and either comment or introduce yourself, join the conversation?
Maybe,
Mm, maybe
maybe
not.
Nerd Nugget is away.
Yeah, perhaps not today. Okay. Well, that's fine. It's okay. That's cool. So, and you mentioned the incentivization layer. So for those who are peer reviewing, there's an incentive that's denominated in what?
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that part, the most important part. Before I go, I see Ed is here.
Yeah,
Ed,
yeah,
I met Ed in another DeSci community informally. So maybe later on, Ed has interesting questions he want to share later
yeah.
on, perhaps.
So
Um,
Ed is a old school DeSci supporter. He's been, I think, a part of every single one of our spaces. So all 51 spaces that Ed has been around.
wow,
A lot of insight. Ed has a
that's
lot
why
of.
I'm seeing
Yeah,
him.
Ed has been around as long as I've been around.
Every
Wow.
space I go in, I
Okay.
feel like Ed is there. He's like a
Ed is always around.
what are those things? Tardigrades? They're just everywhere.
Yeah,
Love you,
yeah,
Ed.
for sure. Yeah, so Ed can come up and they're working on, so Ed, for those who are interested, is in the regenerative agriculture space. And they're doing a lot of implementations that deal with communication of information around regenerative agriculture techniques and data. So they're interested in journals, but they're also interested in tech. So Ed, whenever you're ready, if you ever want to, please feel free to come up. We also have Katrina Greaves, who has decided to
I
join
was
us
just
on
going to mention.
stage. Yeah. So Katrina, you want to unmute yourself and either introduce yourself or join the conversation or
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you, Jelani, for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to say congratulations to Delroy and for this project, and just for the other individual that was basically educating us on ICP and why the benefits of utilizing that platform. So, for example, like no one would be able to shut it down. So the decentralized aspect of it. So, yeah, I think that this is a great project, and I'll definitely be checking out your website that Jelani uh, added to the top of the pin to the top of the Twitter Spaces.
Awesome.
Thanks. And before we go, DeSci Youth is also here. I've spoken to him before. And who else is here? Everyone else. I guess everyone else can introduce themselves, or if they have a project, I guess if they want to also introduce their DeSci project, it's fine.
Yeah.
But
So no. So this is dedicated for you, of course, Delroy. DeSci Victor is also an old friend of mine, who can also come up if they want to join the conversation. But you seem to have garnered a lot of support from those old heads in the space, which is really, really good. But to your point, I think Nobleblocks is a fantastic platform. So it attracts the interest and talent from those who see the value in what it's trying to solve. Now, to that point, you're going to mention the incentives for the peer reviewers and other stakeholders in the ecosystem, in the Nobleblocks ecosystem. I'd love to learn more about that.
So yeah, we have a native token called Noble, which this will use to incentivize editors and reviewers and the general community. However, because of Internet Computer and the way it has integrated with, say, Bitcoin and Ethereum, and they have their own native token, and they're integrating with, in the near future, with other stablecoins. So we'll be able to integrate any other tokens or coin in there, and people will be rewarded through this. So the author, they still have to pay to publish, but it won't be anything anywhere near what what they would be paying currently to the traditional publishing platforms. And we only going to take a very small cut from this. Majority of this will go towards the editors and the reviewers. So we're just providing the platform, and of course we have to take some kind of fee to maintain the platform. But it's not like how the system is now, where they take everything and they don't give nothing to the reviewers. I don't know, maybe they do some editors or something, but basically they take majority of the profit without giving much back to the community. So we are opposite to this. It's going back to the community. We're taking a small percentage, of course. But yeah, that's how the token will work.
Interesting. And so in terms of, that's on the, for lack of a better word, the supply side, right? So you're providing these papers, but in today's journals, you also have to pay to read scientific articles. What does that framework look like with Nobleblocks?
Oh, so we're going to give the author, we want to have everything open source, but we were going to give the author the opportunity to have it, they can turn it into an NFT if they want, IP NFT, or they can choose whether or not they want people to pay to access it. But we're going to encourage fully open access. We won't close it from our end like the other publishers do, but we want the author to have that that control. That was part of the idea. Maybe later on we'll get more feedback from scientists, and because we're working closely with scientists to hear their opinions, and then there are many scientists we haven't heard from. They also have opinions, so we're listening closely to the community, and we're working with the community, because I've spent an entire year working with an editor from Nature magazine, and they helped me to build out the entire process. So I didn't just build it out like that. They actually helped to build it out. And so yeah, we're open for ideas, but that's the general idea, to have it as an open access.
That's fantastic. And it's good to hear that you're getting advisory or advice from somebody who actually works in the field at something like Nature. That's a key level of insight that I think a lot of people don't get the opportunity to incorporate into their builds. So that's really interesting. To that actual point, I'd be curious to see what has been your experience in talking to scientists about this. Have they been amenable to the idea? As somebody who has been advocating for DeSci for about 2 years now, I can understand the skepticism, or I've experienced the skepticism that exists when introducing something that is really novel, right? Scientists have never really had the opportunity to be owners or to have sovereign control over the assets that they generate, especially papers. That is unheard of. So oftentimes there's a little bit of a learning curve. There's a mind shift, a mental paradigm shift that has to occur for them to be like, oh, okay, like this is something that is possible now today. Now that the technology has kind of grown. What has been your experience with scientists and the like?
Scientists are pretty old school, and it's
Yeah,
surprising because they should be the one on the cutting edge, but I believe because I don't know if because most of them are not, I wouldn't say most, but a lot of them are not business minded. So it's good to mix a business minded person with scientists. So some people are, most people are that I've spoken that I talked to, they're for open access, and you have people who are skeptical about open access and decentralized platform. But eventually, if you present it to them in a way where they see the value, then they will, I believe they will come around. Because that's how technology work. You know, if it was easy, everybody would do it, and everybody would have seen how to get it done. But it's not like that. So we're just building, and once we have it ready, we get help from the people who understand, and then we will try and onboard those who are still on the sideline. But eventually they will come around because, you know, before internet you have magazines, and then those magazines everybody wanted to publish in them, and now it's online. So now it's going decentralized. So let's see. Let's see how we get those undecided on board.
yeah. I think a good analogy to this would be the Blockbuster Netflix comparison, right?
That's a very good one. Yes.
Right. So journals of the past had a certain monopoly or ownership or structure that was prevailing and predominant. But I think with the times and the social collective consciousness shift, but also the technological shift, we're moving into the ages of the Netflix, the streaming, and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think these giants are prepared to pivot in a way that is sufficient for them to catch that momentum. And so that opens up a lot of opportunities for new developers, new thinkers, innovators to start to craft out what the future could actually look like. And this is a perfect example of that. And it's a very easy one too. And not to disparage other Web3 niches like DeFi, that's all fantastic. But it's not solving, DeFi does not necessarily solve a need in the same way as what you're trying to do. There is a problem, a defined problem that affects science across the board, no matter what your jurisdiction is, no matter where you live, first world, second tier, third world country, it doesn't change anything. It is a ubiquitous issue. And so if you can solve for that, that is a fantastic shift and a fantastic opportunity that many of us have not seen before. So I think there's a lot of cool things here.
I think DeFi as a whole, like the idea solves a really necessary problem. It's just that we don't really have a clear playbook on how to actually do any of it.
Exactly.
Versus
Exactly.
DeSci, I feel like the path is fairly obvious to everyone involved. Like we know what we have to do, it's already being done, and it's like just a matter of waiting. I think both of them solve pretty good problems. Just DeSci, it's like so much more obvious.
Yeah, you have like their targets right there, right? Like
Exactly.
the scientific to Delroy's point, you would expect science as an industry, not as a product, not products, but as an industry itself to be as innovative as the products that it ships. But it's not. Science is running on, dirt roads, whereas opposed to the software system, the software industries are like high speed rails. Like it's extremely archaic, which is sucks, but gives us a lot of opportunity. So I completely agree with you. The targets, the low hanging fruit is there. We just really need to pick it. And it sounds easy, but over time, it's not an if, it's an inevitability, really, at this point. So Delroy, to Noble Blocks, you talked about committees or I guess working groups deciding on who should peer review, who can't peer review, all this kind of stuff. Does that seems to sound like Nobleblocks will be have a DAO-esque infrastructure to it? Like what's the for lack of a better word, what is the entity infrastructure structure for Nobleblocks?
Yeah, so eventually we will have a DAO and a steering committee. I'm still working with my advisors from the traditional publishing sector, and so a DAO will be definitely implemented later down once we finish building out what we have here. Then we pivot to a DAO. But for now, we're just building out, and then later on, we'll definitely have a DAO because we're gonna need people who are expert in the field to select other expert, but also the general. Everyone else can also take part into in that through the DAO. So then it's fully decentralized. It's not just some guys behind in a room with whiskey deciding who they choose as editor. It's
Yeah.
still gonna have, but we need those experts to start the bulk. And then after that, we'll have the general public, say Ed or everyone else out there, have a say in who can review what paper.
No, I there for real. I'll be there. That's for sure. And so, does that mean that the Noble token that is being distributed as a reward will also potentially have governance features to it, or will it maybe be a different token for that?
No, well, this will be it will be this token, yes.
Okay.
I believe on Definity, if we go with Definity, if we launch the DAO on Definity, they will give us a different token for that.
Do you want to tell me what Definity is, just for those who are not as familiar with the ICP ecosystem?
Oh, sorry. Definity is the organization registered in Switzerland that we got grants from. We got 2 grants from them, and they're responsible for Internet Computer, which is the platform we built on. So they provide like there's a DAO called SNS DAO that once we have certain traction and so on, we can apply to go to this DAO, to get this DAO for our platform as well. So that's one option. We haven't fully settled on where we're going to go as yet, but for now, those are the directions.
Okay. So I think that gives us a really nice overview of what Nobleblocks is, what you're looking to build. We are still early, but I think there's a lot of potential here, and you definitely seem to have the advisory, the marketing, and the ideation lined up or in sync for that. Um, I'll let Ed go. Ed decided to come up, and then I'll finish my point afterwards. Ed, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, we're in a little different situation in the regenerative ag community because we're pretty much working with nature. So if you're working in the medical world and you're creating some drug, something that's synthetic or something like that, or you're editing something, then that adds a lot of complications to the system. Like we can identify a researcher who's doing, for example, Dr. James White at Rutgers, he works on endophytes, which are all the organisms that enter plants and the symbiotic relationships. And he's been working on a new discovery over the last few years that we never really knew, that that plants are able to take in whole bacteria and get a lot of nutrients off of them and actually create organic nitrogen in them. And it's for regenerative ag, it's been breakthrough knowledge. But what we do is we connect with James and start working with him. And then we invite him out to conferences and stuff to speak, and we can give him a little support. And then our leading farmers can work with him directly then to take his research and put it into practice. And then we can share feedback back and forth and give him ideas, and he gives us ideas. And then it gets that practical application, because then farmers go, wow, James's work is really working for us. And as James said, he used to spend all his time in the lab and never really connected with anybody. He liked that in some ways, but now he actually is able to get, the practical experience, learn from the people that are actually using it. And it's easy with us because I say we're working with nature. We're not. So fortunately, they're not regulating us because there's not an awful lot to regulate. But it works great because it works for us. It works for James. He's able to get more funding then because he can show that I'm out there bringing this to the practitioners, and they're finding it very successful and telling and supporting that we want more research, has research to continue. So he's able to get more funding. And then we take those, when he comes out and talks, we just film it and put it on YouTube or something, or do podcasts with him and then share that information. There's not a lot of money in that, but it keeps the system going. And I'm just trying to now build an online platform so that we can bring more people together in the community, because we're now getting interest from the medical community and the nutrition community, because we're at the roots of health, and the environmental community because we're solving, the water problems and all these issues. So it's a different approach. It's a little hard to do in some disciplines like the medical community because of all the regulations. You just can't go out and hand people drugs and say, tell me if it works. Your peer review is a little different too. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that. I'll land it now.
And you bring up always fantastic points and non-trivial ones again. So you talk about authors, right? Like, what's the implication of this towards authors beyond just their ability to actually publish? The currency of science is meritocracy, right? It's your reputation. Now, the reputation system that exists currently is wildly skewed and built on really shaky foundation. But when anybody can publish anything, for example, and demonstrate that they know what they're doing through that publication, that opens up the realm of people being able to validate, oh, this person actually knows what they're talking about. Like, I don't need to trust you just because you went to an Ivy League college or you went somewhere else that allows you to publish. I can go and look at your data and you can show me. I can figure out exactly what you're doing. And that's really, really important towards the future in terms of what real science is and what real truth is. So that's a non-trivial point. The other thing that actually you also bring up is with regards to regulation. So Delroy, to yourself, and I wanted to bring this up because there are other platforms that are attempting to do things similarly. How do you consider international secrecy laws? And what do you think the application of those on Nobleblocks could be? And I'm going to give a specific example, right? I'm a scientist based in I'm a scientist based in United States who is publishing on some kind of research. Scientist A in a non-friendly country is also now able to get access to that because it's on a decentralized network. There's going to be legal ramifications for that. How do you foresee that playing out?
Well, we're going to have to let the legal team, the lawyers, give advice on that. I haven't figured that part out. But we're trying to be decentralized. We're trying to not play with politics. Let's say somebody in Russia or China or some country, or Iran, some countries that other countries, are not so friendly with. They found the cure for a disease that's plaguing the West. But just because of politics, this information won't get out there to the public. Even if they are mass producing it and curing cancer in their country, at least the public could see this and put pressure on their own government to approve it. But we're trying to be open to everyone. But again, this is going to come down to the legal team, which I'm not a lawyer, but we'll have people who can advise us and how to proceed with all of those. Because
Yeah.
that's a great point actually. But we have to depend. We still have to work within a framework, I believe, but we will get legal advice on those.
Yeah, so I threw that out there, knowing full well that there's no real clear answer to that, is because I think when we looked at other niches in the Web3 space start to crop up, it was always with the mindset of forget regulation, we're going to build this and it'll work and everything. And now, in fact, you have to work within the legal standings that exist in the real world. And so I want to highlight the fact that it seems like, to your point, DeSci as a whole, as an industry, has actually taken a different approach from its predecessors and leaned into this more regulatory friendly or regulatory cognizant aspect. So it's great to see that. I always find it important when people are doing due diligence on a platform, and any of the platforms that we showcase on DeSci World demonstrate that they have this idea, or at least this notion that there are going to be laws that we have to deal with, and we're playing within, to the best of our ability, what those laws permit us to do. So just free advice for that. Always make sure that whatever you're investing in, whatever you're looking to be a part of, considers those points.
Something that is like fairly interesting and on point with that is that was something that got brought up the other day when I was at the Capitol for Florida, like trying to figure out how are we going to how do you regulate any of this stuff? Like it's a question that the entire industry is struggling with right now. Like for a DAO specifically, and I know, most DeSci projects are a DAO or have plans on becoming a DAO down the line. Like if something goes terribly wrong, God forbid nothing terribly wrong happens, but this is real life and we have to acknowledge that like shit happens sometimes. Like who do you sue in the event that like I don't know. I don't know what would go wrong, but like, who do you sue in a DAO? There's nobody who's supposed to be in charge of it to represent everything. So like, how are you supposed to create regulations for an industry like this where things can move in a moment's notice too? Like we move a lot quicker than regulations do. That's for damn sure. And so it's something I think each project has to like kind of think about and figure out their own approach to, because there's not just one answer, and it'll be interesting to see it unfold.
Yeah, well, I would argue that DeSci is more susceptible to legal ramifications. One, from the side of if you're developing something biomedical, then for sure. But also, even on the publishing science communication side, right? If you're thinking about it, oftentimes these people, whoever is partaking in this, is doxxed to some extent. If I'm a peer reviewer and I've shown my credentials of being the top cancer researcher in the field, like they're gonna know who you are, even if you decide to represent yourself with a NFT or an emoji. They'll figure out who you are. So we need to be extremely cautious as it relates to those kind of things, because we're not just a transaction protocol. I'm not just a DeFi protocol that facilitates transactions. I'm actually dealing with real world things, and with real people. So those are, really good points, and it's interesting to see. So that investor, are you a lobbyist? Do you partake in legal frameworks in general?
Lobbyists get paid for their efforts, so no, I am not a lobbyist.
Okay.
I did. That was the first time I got to go to the Capitol and try and like put my feet on the ground to actually help move the industry forward. So I'm opening the door to it because, truthfully, the people in the United States, at least trying to regulate everything, have no idea what they're doing, and they need all the help that they can get.
Right. Cool. Yeah, I agree. I think those regulators that I've spoken of to in the scientific realm are a little bit more, ironically, somewhat more amenable to the idea, because it's not so much of a drastic change. We're not trying to revolutionize fundamental processes. We're actually just trying to optimize for them. And
Exactly.
there's a lot more interest in optimization than the breaking down of certain things and then rebuilding them differently. So that's great. Delray, let's see. What can we expect on with the roadmap for Nobleblocks? So where are you in your phases of development? And I'm sure you're still early phase, but it's great to hear that you've gotten a few grants from Definity. What can we expect from Nobleblocks moving forward in the next 5-10 years?
5-10 years. I never have a roadmap that long, but because things change so fast.
That's fair.
Things changes. I mean, before we went on to internet computer, we were thinking about EOS,
Yeah.
and before that, we were thinking about Amazon, and then we have internet computer, and things change so fast. So our roadmap is like a year, less than a year, or less than a year. Not so, yeah. We're just a few months, not that long. But eventually, I'm hoping 10 years from now, we will, at least if we're still the only one. Well, I know we won't be the only one. We could set the stage for other people to come in and come into similar in this space and help to advance it. So that's my general wish. But in terms of the short term, we're working on collaborative features so that scientists can more easily collaborate with each other from whichever country they are. I know now people probably are collaborating. I don't know how it works, but I think it's not as collaborative as it could be because it's such a competitive space. So we're working on our next step of the fundraising is to work on our collaborative feature and finish working on the existing features that we're working on. But we try to go 2-3 months in terms of roadmap. And we still try not to put everything out there yet.
Yeah. So I can tell
We
you
try
right
to
now.
still be competitive.
Okay.
We know we have competitors out there, so we're trying to. I love the competition, to be honest. I know we're in the DeSci space; we're supposed to share everything, but I love to compete. So we're not letting everything out there. We have a roadmap, but it's like we still have more. But so far, that's what we have.
Okay, here why. No, so listen, iron sharpens iron, right? So you can have like
Yeah.
in the DeSci space, no, we're not all supposed to be here kumbayaing together. I think we can be complementary, we can be non-combative, but competition is what keeps innovation moving. Um, and the space definitely needs that. The space has that, so it's all good. And to your point about competitors, there are things like Research Hub that exists and has been around for a long time and has some level of notoriety because of Brian Armstrong. What do you consider in terms of your positioning relative to these more arguably mature projects that already exist and are already trying to tackle the publishing infrastructure?
I like the analogy you used earlier about Blockbuster and Netflix. So you were talking about Netflix, right?
Yeah.
So I view I view our project similar to Netflix and what Brian Armstrong they're doing as Blockbuster. But I respect that they're also in the field because he's very well known, and for someone like that to be in the space, I mean, he owns Coinbase. They can easily eat anyone up if they want, right? So I'm happy they're in the space, and we're trying to compete indirectly, not like in a friendly way. It helps innovation, as you said. But yeah, they've been there since 2019, I believe, and we just built our platform this year. Well, we started to work on it this year. We're fully decentralized. They are not fully decentralized, at least not yet, I guess. Maybe they're planning on doing that later, but for now they're not. Yeah, we're just building and watching what they're doing and try to compete. Yeah.
Yeah, one major standout between you and them is they're not on chain. So they leverage a token, they leverage the research token, but they're not actually on chain. So none of the papers that come through, none of the review process that come through, none of the metadata that exists is being captured on chain yet. So there is definitely room for improvement if you want to consider that improvement. There are room for different modulatory ways of tackling this. They are one way, you're another way, and also there's opportunities for collaboration and coexistence, synergistic coexistence as well.
I was I was just gonna say if I can cut you off, sorry.
Yeah, man, go ahead. No, please.
Yeah, it's if everyone abandoned the publication houses that we have right now and all jumped to one platform being Research Hub, I feel like we've kind of regressed when it comes to that decentralization aspect of it. So while I think it's better to be on something like Research Hub than the traditional models right now because of that censorship resistance, I think the space is going to be more beneficial if we have multiple platforms that are coexisting together and, like you said, synergizing, like maybe connecting APIs to some capacity. I have no idea what it will look like right now, but I think it'd be more beneficial to have a few platforms for people to post on.
Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree. And there's, Delaware, you and I will speak after this, but there's interesting opportunities with people committing things to IPFS and Nobleblocks also, while people can publish directly on Nobleblocks, but Nobleblocks itself becoming a curation layer or a surfacer of information or data that exists in that data lake that is IPFS and other similar type of things. So there's opportunities there as well. And I think we can explore those. But definitely the horizon is large, the ambitions are high, but also the motivation is very high too to accomplish these things. So
Yeah,
that is
da-
fantastic.
yeah, data lake. They're working on something quite interesting. So yeah, they're definitely. We could see ourselves collaborating with them.
Yeah, so you mean data lake the platform. So I was speaking more of the concept of the IPFS data lake, where there's just a repository of information that exists. But data lake in and of itself as a platform, absolutely. I think there's definitely a lot of synergies that could exist between Nobleblocks and data lake itself. So in
Yeah.
terms of to what you said before, right, your 5-year plan is to have individuals be a part of the ecosystem. Today, right now, if somebody is interested in coming on board and helping either shape out or participate in the development of Nobleblocks, how can they get about that? How can the community help build out what Nobleblocks is trying to do?
They can contact us, and then we see where their strength lies, and then we can work from there. Currently, we're just programmers, and so that's what we're doing right now, just building out that side, the back end and front end, and then after we start onboarding people like scientists, then we can see how other people might be able to contribute. But for now, we are focused on programming back end, front end, and then we're going to start onboarding. That's part of the roadmap as well, to onboard. But we don't want to introduce our project to scientists until it's fully functional and easy to use. So that's the stage where we are. And then later on, we can see how other people can contribute to what we're doing. I'm sure many people have ideas that they might introduce to us that we haven't thought of. So then, we're open to any ideas that might present themselves to us.
And do you have a Discord or a Telegram chat or a Slack? Like, what's the best way to get involved with the Nobleblocks community?
If someone is serious, the best way is via email, info@nobleblocks.com. Because right now, our Telegram, we need to probably open another Telegram because it's a lot of crypto people joined, and they're there just for the quick buck. So for the serious people who are about decentralized science, we're going to create a DeSci community on Telegram, but because of the stage we are in our roadmap, which is we're trying to raise fund, and then after that onboard scientists while we're still building out. So that's why right now there's a lot of we don't have anything else beside our Twitter, or they can reach us via email if they're serious.
So I think that's a really interesting point, and something that I've run into quite often in this space is that how do you deal with balancing out the speculators versus those who are actually trying to build and become true stakeholders. And I think that's going to be one of the bigger issues that we face in DeSci, especially in the bull run. And we're at the beginning of one, but in the heart of a bull run, what happens when your community, your core community, just gets stampeded over by individuals that are just like one token, one token?
I'm gonna be honest. I think we need to go through a full cycle. I think the bear market weeds all those people out, and the core community stays come next cycle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The thing is, we're not building this depending on crypto money per se. So most projects out there, they have to depend on crypto. But this, if it works out well, then we'll be onboarding scientists and authors who will contribute. That's the hope. and then because somebody has to pay. I know it's, everybody wants everything for free, but somebody has to pay. And as I said, we are not taking much of the money from that, and that's also not a good thing about Dfinity. It's quite economical to host on there, at least now. So we're building it so we can be profitable, but at the same time, we're not trying to be like the current system
Yeah,
where
you're
the
trying to be
editors
sustainable but not predatory in a
exactly,
perfect way. Yeah, that's a perfect
exactly. So
find it.
yeah, so I'm not really worried about the noise from the crypto people right now, because it's a very delicate mix of people who are scientists and serious about what they're doing, and then these guys coming over here just trying to make a quick buck. But we understand that very well. But yeah, so we're not really worried too much about the noise.
No, I don't think you should. I think there are opportunities that present themselves in both of those realms. So it's just look at what opportunities are there from the crypto speculative side and see if you can funnel that, not necessarily like monetarily, but those opportunities into the fundamentals of the platform in and of itself. And I think that way everybody will win and everybody will be happy. So we are
Exactly.
near the top of the hour, the end of the space. We've got about 4 minutes left. I'd love to leave it to you, Delroy, as well as that investor, to leave any closing remarks, any last call to actions or statements you want to leave to the community. Be reminded that this is going to be on Spotify and YouTube, so it'll be reaching far and it'll be there for a while. So, whatever last statements you want to put out, please feel free.
Well, I'm just hoping that everyone will support us, and not just us, but the wider DeSci community, and stay focused. Not just it's a very boring field. It's a very boring endeavor. Uh, you really have to love this to be doing it. So yeah, just stay focused and strong, and keep pushing.
I wanna say thank you to DeSci World. I appreciate you hosting all these spaces. 51st space is definitely a feat. So round of applause for DeFi World or DeSci World. Absolutely appreciate you. It takes a lot of time, and time is your most valuable asset. So you gotta invest that shit wisely.
I love
And
that.
thank
Invest
you,
that shit wisely.
and thank you, DeSci World. How can I forgot to to thank you? I didn't even notice that. Yeah, you're right. 51 is a lot. You've
Yeah,
been doing
man.
this for 2 years.
Yeah, man. It's been yeah, but you know what? We appreciate it still. Yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a fantastic opportunity to meet so many great builders in the space. Before we close out, I'd actually like to put out a call to action myself. So for those of you who will be in North America at the end of February, who will be attending ETH Denver. We are hosting a DeSci Summit where there will be most, if not all, of the DeSci projects will be some in there in some way, shape, or form, whether in person or virtually or hosting all these kind of things. So if you're interested in learning more about DeSci, you want to participate, you want to join the conversation, you want to meet who these builders are, minus Delroy, because he's not going to make himself available for us, unfortunately, and too big. Um, but please take the time to go to the DeSci Summit Twitter handle. I put it up here in the Jumbotron. You can sign up to be a speaker. You can sign up to be an attendee. If you want to be a sponsor, there's sponsor opportunities. We have, I think, 6 side events, 4 or 5 after parties. We have one gigantic DeSci hacker house, which is focused on the interoperability. So how can we make these different DeSci projects and DeSci tooling work with one another, weave them together to make them even more compounding interest, and the like. So it's going to be a great, fantastic time. I hope to see many of you there in person if we can. And that'll be it. So thank you all for participating. Thank you for coming to another great episode. I will see you next week with our next episode. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend.
Thanks to everyone.
Take it easy, guys. Bye bye.